For me, for the first time in a long time, it's been an exciting time to be a Star Trek fan. And a lot of that has to do with the third season of Star Trek Picard. And I'm giving my thoughts and reactions to the final two episodes called Vox and The Last Generation right after the jump. Hello, everyone. Terrence here with Hollywood Already Did It. If you haven't already, go ahead, like, share, subscribe to the channel, leave a comment, ring that bell below. Anytime we have something, you will be among the first to know. Going to sort of combine the two episodes together here to finish off the final season of Picard. Episode called Vox was episode 9, and The Last Generation was episode 10. And it works because they sort of work as a two-part episode that we would normally have gotten in the back in the Next Generation days. Had a blast with the series. I've had so much fun. It's actually kind of, I won't say bittersweet because it actually ends on a high note. It feels good to see everybody back together. But this was a very exciting time. Look, I was a Star Trek fan. And for a while there, Star Trek and Star Wars were dead even for me. I am raised on the Next Generation and Deep Space Nine era. Deep Space Nine being my favorite series of them all. And a little bit of the Voyager, the front end episodes of the Voyager. But then I've kind of lost. I lost after that. So Enterprise I didn't watch any of. And I have not seen an episode of Discovery. Well, I've seen like 3 episodes of Discovery, and I've seen none of Strange New Worlds. A lot of what I loved about Star Trek had sort of, I did not have that feeling for. So I watched these first 2 seasons of Picard, and I still didn't feel them. You got to see Jean-Luc Picard, but it felt like it was a little bit more of a hopeless world that we sort of lived in. This season of Picard has sort of reinvigorated that feeling for me. And these final 2 episodes of Picard sending me off in a way that I am now hungry for anything that is Star Trek. I am going to go back down the rabbit hole and watch all of the Discovery, watch all the Strange New Worlds, and hope that we do get to see the whatever spinoff we might get from this. So let's pick up with Vox. I think some people were sort of disappointed with the reveal of who was behind that red door because they had sort of called it. It's like, oh, it's the Borg. That's who's behind that red door. It's the Borg. And so when you see it, kind of like, see, I was right. And it kind of dissipates your excitement for the rest of the episode. For me, it did not. I didn't quite have it being in the Borg, but I had a feeling that something attached to what you don't bring up and kind of have a whole hard-hitting moment with Shaw and Picard talking about the Borg situation if the Borg doesn't sort of come back to bite his head. So that's what we get here. And when we open up that door, Jack and Deanna go look in the episode called Vox. They open up that door, and yeah, it's the Borg cube on the other side of that ship. And Deanna comes freaking out, talking to Beverly and Picard, saying, hey, yo, it's the Borg cube. And you never had aromatic syndrome. What you had was a symptom of a little piece of the fragments of the Borg organism still living within you. And that's just the way that it read. And the reason why they went through your body is because they want to see what your body did then and why it read the way that it did and how it sort of manifested and all that. And so when Picard realized that his symptoms were a side effect of the Borg, he realized that he then passed on in some way, very silent, not knowing, passed that on to Jack. Jack now is hearing the voices of the Borg Queen call him, and that is who has been calling him this entire time. Gianna lets Picard and Beverly know that there are protocols. Like, your son is a weapon. Vadic was coming after him because he's a weapon, he's a danger. We have to keep him on this ship. Picard's like, cool, we're going to do that, let me go talk to him. Goes to have a conversation with him, and it goes a little left. But he says, like, I was assimilated by the Borg at some point in time, and I believe that is what I passed on to you. And Jack's like, cool, so all this time that I thought I was looking for us all to have a hive community and hive mind and all sort of be together, be one. I was doing this because of the belief that I had with that attachment to the Borg stuff. Like, who am I and whatnot? He tries to leave. Starfleet protocols have already sort of started taking effect, and they are 2 guards ready to escort him to a prison. They're going to take him to a Starfleet base, but the Starfleet base is essentially a prison, and Jack knows that. He wants no parts of it. So he takes over those 2 minds and kind of threatens his dad, but he's like, you're not getting the best of me here. And he sees Beverly at some point in time, his mom, Beverly. He's like, nope, Mom, I got to go. His plan, which is a terrible plan, but his plan is I'm going to go talk to the Borg Queen face face first. I'm gonna go talk to her, and then when I'm talking to her, I'm gonna stab her in the neck and kind of show her that she doesn't have control of me and that I'm a better control of this. There's no way that that's going to go but left. We all know this, but Jack, he's got that Picard in him. He's got that Jean-Luc in him. And so much so that Picard even says it. He's like, you raising him, and he's got a lot of you in him. Jesus, he's got a lot of me in him too. And this is where we're at. So he heads off, takes a shuttle, and he goes to go find the Borg ship, which is hidden in the gases of a moon. He gets there, talks to the Borg Queen, and he realizes that between his scene with the Queen and what the folks back on Titan are figuring out is that Jack, back in the day, the Borg would act as sort of a receiver of messages. They were all one as together, but Jack, the way that he does it, he's the transmitter. He can get this out to anybody and everybody. And so as a transmitter, they need him so that he can transmit to the greatest amount of people in the biggest time when the majority of the time Borgs are just taking command. So that's why Jack is so important to them. And when he arrives there, he's like, you're not the one who speaks. You're the voice itself. And so his Borg name is Vox. That's hence the name of the title of the episode. Back on the Titan, the folks on the Titan have realized that they had to head to Frontier Day to sort of warn them all the Borg have assimilated Starfleet and that their attack time is Frontier Day. But and then let them know that the Borgs and the Changelings have been working together to sort of overtake this. It's a little too late, though. They have realized that the Borg and the Changelings have been working to assimilate and take over all of Starfleet. And anyone who is above the age of, I believe they said 25, becomes assimilated. And so that they send this message with the help of Jack, who gets plugged in. He starts sending this message to just take over Starfleet. And thus they start taking over. The folks that are younger on the Titan start taking over and becoming Borg, and they take over the ship and they remove folks from the bridge, and it becomes their ship. They're at the helm of the Titan. At that point, all our Next Generation folks realize that they had to get off the ship, and with the help of Raffi and Seven of Nine, they get to a shuttle so that they can leave off. Because Geordi has this great idea. They head off, but while they're heading off, Shaw and Seven of Nine get into a sort of a phaser fight with a couple of changelings, and Shaw is shot and killed. Throwing out for Shaw. I would have loved to have seen him continue on. But in that, right, as he is passing, he gives the power of the ship, the captain chair, to Seven of Nine and calls her by her name of Seven of Nine as opposed to her birth name, which was a fitting thing for that moment. But then we hear and we see all the Starfleet ships sort of triangulating onto Earth, and we hear that Starfleet is Borg, and they're planning to first take down the Starfleet defenses that are stopping Earth from being attacked, and then they're hitting all the heavily populated areas of Earth. And so that is their attack measure, to just sort of attack, wipe out. They no longer want to assimilate. They just want to destroy and wipe out anybody that is not Borg, and then just live without them. Geordi's plan is to obtain the Enterprise D, the old Next Generation ship, completely rebuilt. Their set is back. Can't tell you enough of the goosebumps that arrived on my skin the second that you see that Enterprise, and the colors, the carpet, all of it. It just took me back to my childhood and reminded me, like, oh man, these are some good times. But he uses the Enterprise D, and it works for the story. It's not just a member berries type of thing. Is that the Enterprise D is analog and it is off the grid, so it's not something that the Borg can just outright take over, because it is sort of off the beaten path and on its own thing. And Geordi has sort of been collecting and assembling the pieces of the ship that have been lost all over the place throughout all the mini films and previous shows, to sort of recreate and come up with this new version, this memorialized version of the Enterprise D. So they are all there, and the Last Generation is back on the ship to do one last mission. That's how the episode of Vox ends, and then we end up with Last Generation, which is the final episode of Picard Season 3. As we see all the ships from the Borg, Starfleet, triangulating and trying to destroy Earth, the Next Generation team know that they have to approach the Borg ship and sever the ties that Jack has to sort of cut that signal, cut that amplification signal off, so that they can save Earth. But hopefully do so while also saving, at least for Beverly and Jack, by saving Jack as well. This comes at that weird time where, like, do we save Jack or do we save our son? And if we come up with that, if we get down to the point where we have to choose, which one do we choose? Rafi and Seven wind up taking back over the bridge of the Titan by sort of they fix the gun so that they become teleportation guns or weapons, something that, hey, could be useful in the future. But if they shoot someone, they teleport them back to a spot, and they teleport them back to the teleportation bay, which they have locked so that they transfer all of Geordi's kids, the two girls, and the rest of the bridge folks, who had sort of become Borg minded, put them in there so that they don't have to kill them, but they are out of the way and they can't cause any more trouble. At that point, Picard lets the team know that he needs to go, and the only thing that he can do is go to the Borg ship. He knows where, he has an idea where Jack is, but he has to go there himself to sort of separate this tie. Worf and Riker decide that they need to go with him. They're not going to let him go by himself. Worf says a very uncomfortable and awkward, but weird and funny way of how they're going to go about this. Like, oh, we're in a threesome now. It's like, do you not hear yourself talking? Pretty fun way with Riker says it. But they all go as a team to the Borg ship. They teleport onto the Borg ship to go find both the beacon, where they can kind of find sort of the heartbeat of the Borg ship, and to where Crusher Jack is, so that they can kind of sever that signal being sent out. And they're doing this by Beverly giving them earpiece instructions, which in certain parts of the Borg ship she can still hear. They can still hear her. In other parts, they cannot. Once inside, Worf and Riker split and go find the beacon, while Picard goes to go look for Jack. And at that point, that is when Picard comes face to face with the Borg Queen. The Borg Queen, who is the same Borg Queen who was from First Contact. So not the Borg that was in last season, the Borg Queen that was from First Contact. The one that he sort of put a virus on that ship and kind of left them stranded to die and eat away at themselves. It's that Borg Queen. Not played by the same actress who did the first Contact, but the voice actress is the same. So you get Alice back playing the same Borg Queen from that one. You still get her mannerisms and at least the sound, the speech patterns. You still get that, and it feels kind of cool to have the Borg Queen back among us again. But Picard pretty much self-sacrifices himself. He's like, take me. Don't leave Jack. Jack's got a life to live. Don't take Jack. Take me. And they're like, we don't want you anymore, Locutus. Like, their time is gone. The future of the Borg don't rely on assimilation. It relies on evolution. And Jack is that new evolution of what the Borg is. This new one that can transmit who we are and what we want from person to person. That is all. That is who we are now. So then we sort of get a three-part piece where the cube is firing on the Enterprise D, who the Enterprise D is trying to stop the brigade that is attacking Earth. Riker and Worf are trying to send the schematics of the beacon up to the Enterprise while they're being attacked by Borg. They want to send those schematics up so they can kind of figure out what's the best way to shut the Borg cube down, hopefully without like affecting everything. And then Crusher has sort of learned a couple of things with the weapon systems on the Enterprise D, because she sets up torpedoes and gets them to fire off a couple and kind of give them buy them some time. And Geordi's pretty impressed. Like, okay, you don't learn a couple of things. What then happens is that Data, following his gut, bless his heart, comes up with a plan to locate the beacon. So he ends up taking the ship through the cube and lands face to face with the heartbeat, if you will, of the cube, the beacon. And they come to a point where they realize if they destroy the beacon, they destroy the cube and everything on it. And if they don't, then they destroy all of humanity and somehow try to wait around for Picard and Jack to get off of it. So it becomes this, will they, won't they, or how much time do we have? While that's happening, the Titan is still circling around all of Starfleet, and their cloaks are starting to get pulled down because the team that they had on the teleportation bay have escaped and have affected their cloaking system. So now they're now visible and can be shot down. And then those Borg folks start basically making their way back to the bridge and trying to overtake that. So you have a moment where Jordy's kids are face to face with 7 and 9, and they have phasers on them, and it's all happening. This is all happening at one time. Deanna and Beverly are trying to transport Worf and Riker. They have access to them. They can transport them off and then shoot and just hope for the best. But Riker's like, I'm not leaving John Luke down here. He's giving me so much of his life. How much time do I have before we have to make this decision? He's like, got a minute. Like, cool. And that minute's worth me trying to find Picard. And so Worf and Riker find Picard. Picard is now talking to Jack and talking to the Borg Queen, trying to get some sense of reason into Jack, but Jack's not listening. So he plugs himself into the collective again. And you see a couple of shots of first contact, him getting assimilated and all that stuff. And there's a moment with just Jack and Picard having a conversation in this world. Jack starts speaking about the collective. He's like, I thought all this time that I wanted peace and unity and everything, but this is what it feels like. This is what's good. And Picard's like, they want you to believe all of that's good. They just keep going back and forth. And eventually Picard's like, well, here's the deal. I'm not leaving here without you. And so if you're going to stay here, then I'm going to stay here. And he informs him at that point that Jack has changed his life forever. And you start seeing moments over just the course of this season when Picard has done his best to be around Jack in some sort of fatherly figure. When he got shot, he woke up, he was there. All these sort of moments that, like, he is genuinely trying. I've never had a father, but this Picard is trying my best to be a father. And then he hugs Jack. And at that point, they both sort of come out of their trance with the Borg, unplug. They unplug everything at that point. And then Deanna, while that is going on, has some sort of a feeling she connects to Riker to pinpoint their location, because where they're at, they can't get a read to teleport them out, but she sort of gets it. The ship comes in over just that specific spot and teleports them out as they blast. They have just blasted the beacon and then blow up the Borg ship, sending the Borg away for their final time. We know that with the Borg, with anybody of these villains, they're gone until they're not, until we need a story beat to bring them back in. And that's kind of the end of the Borg. And then we sort of get the epilogue that sort of sends us how we finish off the season. Admiral Crusher has put up a directive to anybody who was affected by the Borg, basically the under 25 folks, 25-ish and under, they're all going to be cleared of any Borg remnants. And then they're going to sort of put in a way to check for any other intricacies that they may have to have. Specifically, they're looking for any changeling DNA or any other changeling stuff. They just want to check to see if there are any of those folks that are still left within the system. So they're doing their due diligence for that. Seven meets with Tuvok and is ready to resign. It's like, nope, I'm done. I'm out of here. And Tuvok plays her a video that Shaw has made in reference to her. And it's pretty touching. It's pretty sad. But Shaw says that, like, she is headstrong. He lets me know that I am by the book. I am by the book to a fault. That is how I work. 7 of 9 is not. And she's not in the best ways you can possibly think. He starts showering her praises. And then he refers to her by 7 and 9. It's like, I'm giving my recommendation for her to be captain. Now, mind you, she had just said, trying to get ahead of Tuvok, was like, I resign. And Tuvok's like, well, I respectfully decline your resignation. And thus, 7 and 9 is the captain, which is pretty damn awesome. Rafi gets to connect with her granddaughter and her son after a leak, which feels a little dirty. It feels like your family only wants you around because you saved the world. But they kind of needed a way for you. They've always known you to be spy or a thief. Like, they've already known you to be do the dastardly things. And now that they've known you've done the good things, they're like, oh, she was doing this for a reason. So Worf has sort of leaked all the information of that. Like, she was one of the people that helped saved Earth in this. And so her family now wants her around. And she's very pleased and happy because of that. Data taking advantage of all his feelings. He's getting all up in his feelings and having one-on-one sessions with Deanna Troy a lot. Sometimes they go over, way over. Deanna's not really always paying attention. She's thinking about like where she's going out for vacation and all that stuff. But she is there to at least give Data that feeling that, hey, I'm going through these therapy sessions. And that's sort of the relationship the two of them have. But then we see that a year passes. So we have some time that occurred. And once the year passes, Riker, Picard, and Geordi are all on the bridge of the Enterprise D. And they reminisce about all the good sort of the times that they've had on the D. And then they walk out and sort of, for the final time, shut it down. So it's the last time that we're saying goodbye to that ship and to the Enterprise and to that team as we know it. We then see Admiral Picard and Admiral Crusher taking their new son in his Starfleet Red to his first assignment as a new ship, as a new piece of Starfleet Academy. He's had an accelerated year of training. He kind of is like, does this nepotism? And they're like, yeah, name doesn't mean everything. And they kind of like, yeah, you're right, name doesn't mean everything. But they have a bit of a surprise for Picard because he doesn't know what ship he's been placed on or what team he's been placed with. They pull up and they see that the ship is the Titan, but has been renamed and purposed as the Enterprise G, which hits a soft spot for Picard. And at that point, Crusher hugs him on the back. He's like, well, names do mean a little bit of something. And so he's been placed on the new Enterprise. And it's for a brief moment, they make it seem like he's going to be the captain. And I'm like, that's a little too far fetched for him to speed along in 1 year to be the captain. But he's not. He's just an ensign. And Captain 709 is the captain of the new Enterprise. Rothy's her number one. And Jack, acts as the special co-counsel for the captain. So he sits in the third chair, and LaForge is on that. She's on that ship, and so that team goes off to go do whatever new voyages they have for the future, which has me excited. Like if they do a series called Legacy, which I know that's what all the talk is about. If they do a series called Legacy, with Captain 709 and Jack and all these guys, I'm all in. Like I put that in my veins immediately. I would love all of it. Keeping the showrunners of Picard season 3. I would be head over heels for that. And we don't quite get to see yet what her call is to make it so or engage, or we don't get to see that, but we will. And I can't wait till we do, because I'm excited to see what the future of that holds. We finish off with the Next Generation crew having some drinks and toasting and celebrating and commiserating with each other. And we get an old Data story that he didn't quite ever get to finish on Next Generation, brought back up, and they're like, nope, we don't want to hear that. But they all sort of have this commiserating moment, and they start playing, getting gambling on, and start having a good game of cards. It's one of the best post credit scenes that you have, because you just see them genuinely just having fun. And as a Next Generation fan, it's both the characters having that moment, but also the actors getting to be around in the same room with each other, playing those characters again. And you get an overhead shot with all their names coming up and Alice's name coming back up, and just kind of like seeing them all around this table and just having a genuine good time for what probably is going to be the final time that all of them are together in a room playing the characters that we all grew up and have known to love. It's important, though, that you stayed up for the credits, because there's a post-credit sequence for this where Jack is brought face to face with none other than Q, all of us believe that Q was killed in season 2 of Picard. But like he tells Jack, you're thinking linearly and foolishly. Can't quite kill Q. And so it is going to be great that Q now attaches himself to the younger Picard and sort of is there to torment him. While, yes, the team 7-9 is the captain and all that, you do have somebody that Q pops up every now and then to just give that Enterprise pure hell. And so it should be interesting to just see if Q pops back in. I am, for the first time in a very long time, very invigorated to be a Star Trek fan again. And it all comes down to Picard season 3. Like 1 and 2 were fine, but some of it didn't give me that hope and that feel that I think this season got. I hear Strange New Worlds does the same thing, and I'm going to go start watching that. I am now invested in Star Trek again. And I know we got multiple shows coming. We got Starfleet Academy. We got this Legacy show coming. There's a resurgence that occurred, and a lot of it occurred, and it sucks because I know a lot of people have already gotten off the wagon of Picard, but I think season 3 delivered in a way that is what we all wanted, and it's sort of that swan song to say kudos to the next generation crew, and hopefully we can build off and have this legacy series exist and keep that ball rolling for just those old time Star Trek fans that just want something that fills with hope, but it can give us new adventures and new excitement as we go along. What did you guys think about the final 2 episodes of Star Trek Picard called Vox and the Last Generation? Go ahead and leave your thoughts and comments in the comments below. If you haven't already, you can follow us on Twitter at HollywoodADI, or you can hit us up on email at HollywoodAlreadyDidIt@gmail.com. We also have a podcast by the same name. That's on Google Podcasts, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, anywhere that plays podcasts. We're there. And like always, I got my ticket. You got yours.